Welcome everyone to the live Q&A tonight. Erin Snow is joining. And Erin, we have a question. The first question is, my addict says he's sober, but I think he is relapsing because he says he cannot stop himself from sexualizing everyone but me. This is mental cheating. I will never matter and be his only one because it's all in his mind. How can I compete against that? How can he stop doing this fantasy stuff? This is a really tough question, and we see this more and more. So, can you help with this, please?
Yeah. Well, I think what's important is very first thing you said. My addict says he's sober. So what we know is that words mean nothing. Actions are what's important. So I always go to like, well, what is he doing? Right. That obviously this piece I'll address here in a second, but is he going to meetings? Is he talking to other people in recovery every day? Is he, seeing a CSAT therapist? Is he where he says he's going to be? Is he prioritizing, you and the family over, coming home from late from work and golfing on the weekends? And, is he being transparent with finances? Is he respecting your boundaries? Like those would be things that I would say are action based. Whereas, with all the lying and gaslighting things that come along with addiction, words don't mean anything. So this, like, I am sober in his words. Okay. But like, what else is going on? That is showing that there's some level of sobriety here. The other point that's challenging is, okay, so fantasy, like, let's talk about that for a second. First of all, I want to just acknowledge that what you're saying is very painful, that he is telling you literally that I sexualize everybody except for you. Like, that's even beyond like mental cheating. That's painful and that's cruel to say that, you know? But also, I think that when we look at early sobriety, again, it's about behaviors. Sometimes fantasy comes later. Not to say that we endorse it, that we say it's good, no, we give lots of tools in recovery for what do I do when my mind is struggling with fantasy, because fantasy grooves those same neural networks in the brain. Like we always say, like a porn addict doesn't need porn anymore to watch porn. It's like you can literally go to your own mind and play those videos there. And it's not a healthy part of recovery. It is a part of the process to use tools and actually reach out to someone when I'm struggling, call my sponsor when I don't know what to do, recognizing what's the trigger. Like when fantasy is part of a coping mechanism that's like self-soothing. So am I irritated? Am I lonely? Am I upset? Am I depressed? Am I angry? Am I resentful? What is coming before fantasy? Like that's part of this whole autopsy. Because once people are in recovery and their actions are, okay, my inner circle behaviors, I'm not doing those things anymore. I'm not masturbating and watching porn. I'm not acting out sexually outside my marriage. They may still find that fantasy comes up, but it's what I do with that that is indicative of whether you're in recovery and fighting for recovery. All of humans fantasize, and it doesn't have to be sexual. I mean, I can just say, like, when you're bored and your mind wanders off, like it is a process of getting better control over your mind and using tools to help you move away from it. In this case, I don't like the piece of, I'm telling you that I sexualize everyone except for you. That to me is unkind, cruel, mean. And if it's honest, then it's like, well, what are you doing with the fact that you're struggling with fantasy? What do you do when that fantasy enters my mind? I give myself 3 seconds. I turn to a different, topic in my mind, and I pick up the phone and I call somebody, or I say, forget it, grab my wallet. I'm going to a meeting. Like I need to do something with that. So yeah, if he's indulging himself in that, well, I'm not physically acting out. I'm not watching porn, but like, yeah, I sexualize everyone I watch. That's not okay. And so what I would be saying is if I'm sharing with my partner, let's say I'm the one in recovery, and I'm saying, you know what, I have been struggling with fantasy this week. It comes mainly when I'm stressed. But what I've been doing is when that enters my mind, I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling, I'm texting my group chat of guys in recovery, and I'm doing an outer circle behavior to get myself back on track. Like that is honesty with recovery, this, if it is just kind of at face value, what it is you're saying, this is, he needs more help. He needs more help for saying, I just can't stop myself. I just sexualize every single thing I look at, everything but you, like A, lack of empathy. B, it feels like I can't stop. I'm out of control. So I would be saying, well, what are you doing? What are the actions that are bringing you back to a place where your mind is moving in the direction of recovery, moving in the direction of tools that you can use? Because yeah, of course, for you, you're sitting there like, how safe does that make me feel when you're letting me know that what you're doing all day is just sexualizing everybody who walks by? Like, that would not make someone who's a betrayed partner feel safe. And it would not make a betrayed partner feel like their partner has empathy and is moving toward recovery. Any thoughts on that, Tammy? Because
Well, the only thing I thought, it was almost like, like I'm not sexualizing you. Like it was almost like it's good for me that I'm not sexualizing you, like I'm objectifying everyone, but not you, my spouse, like almost like I'm doing, look at how good I'm doing kind of thing. But I'm with you 100%. The actions, it's not the words. And, that this does feel like out of control behavior that is not being attended to. And I don't blame you for perceiving that it's, cheating. It is sure not, it is sure not recovery. And I don't even know if he's sober. He may be abstinent. He may not be acting out, in whatever other form of, acting out it was. But this does not feel like I'm really on a recovery path and I'm really working to do things differently. I love what Erin said too. Is like, call somebody, grab your, wallet and run to a meeting. The other thing I'm wondering about is there still connections with like social media that would be triggering, or feeding into, not even triggering, feeding into, that fantasy stuff. Or, we've had people that, certain types of literature, erotic behavior, whatever, like, are there things that are being done to enhance that fantasy versus work towards recovery? But yeah, the dismissal of like, well, this is, I'm like, this is, I just do this with everyone, so therefore it's okay. It's not. So healthy boundaries for you. I say this all the time and I haven't said it yet, and we're a few minutes in. Healthy boundaries for partners. It's like, like you can't make somebody do or not do, but you sure can take care of yourself. And, of course that's not going to help you draw closer to someone when they're, saying that type of thing. So, oh, his groups, fellowships to call him out. Yes, he is doing the work and gym. Doing it at work and in the gym. So, okay. I think
there's
that,
a question
does that
above.
go with, okay, I'm not sure if that goes with which one. Okay, so I'll start with this question. Less than a year into recovery, PA knows a lot about the effects of betrayal trauma, but recently started to minimize it and say it can't be just the betrayal trauma that makes me the way I am now, that I now think anything goes. And I was like this before, I wasn't. And he is not okay with it. We argued a lot because he would turn a simple conversation into a long argument by constant deflection, and I regret giving in. He's been sober and doing a lot of recovery, but I fear there's no one. Oh, okay, so this was in his groups, fellowships to call him out. Yes, he is doing it at working in the gym.
I think that one might be with the other
But
one.
the first one I know is like, it's hard when they're all anonymous attendee. I can't tell. So
I
sorry.
know.
So we're doing the best we can.
Yes, yes, we are. Okay. So on this one, effects of betrayal trauma. Okay. I mean, so yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of gaslighting in this and saying like, it'd be one thing if it was like, hey, there's certain behaviors or there's certain interactions between us that I'm not okay with. Like, let's say the addict's like, when we scream and yell at each other, it's not good for either one of us. We need to take a pause. We need to take a break. That's a boundary, right? But making it like, the way you are now isn't even about the betrayal trauma. This is who you were before. And that part is not, that doesn't sit well with me. I do agree that like betrayal trauma does not give us a license to be abusive, right? And I am a betrayed partner, and I understand the volatile emotions that come up inside of us. And especially, like you said, when you're met with deflection and gaslighting, and well, this is who you were before, anyways, and this is why I acted out, and you hear all the, that it's really easy to just blow our top. And also, at that point, it's like, and I'm the one that's supposed to take the high road right now, right? Like you've done all of X, Y, and Z. But what I learned for myself is that I don't care what he did. I still want to show up in my integrity, whatever that is. If we're all different, but for me, it was like, I don't want to show up as someone that is mean or name calling or abusive, because that's not who I am with anyone in the world. Does he deserve it? Does he warrant it? Sure. I could come up with a lot of reasons for that. However, so I could say if he was like, hey, there's a more productive way to handle this, right? If he perceives that the betrayal trauma is part of or some of like whatever behavior he's perceiving is not acceptable to him, like he's not okay with it, he could say, hey, when we get into heated emotional arguments, it's not good for either one of us. It doesn't bring out the best in me. It doesn't bring out the best in you. I do agree we need to have discussions. We need to have talks where I can hold the pain that you're feeling and hear you out without deflection, with just vulnerability and listening. If we get off track, we might need to just take a pause and take a time out and regulate ourselves and then come back again, because I do want to be there for you. I do want to help you heal. And it's hard for me to do that because when you're really elevated, I check out or I become defensive, whatever it is. So I'm just saying that there's a healthier way of going about this, and using it as a pointing the finger at you, that doesn't work for me. In other words, this isn't just because what I've done to you. You've always been this crazy. You've always been, that's gaslighting. That's a lack of empathy. And that's not handling it in a productive way. If he had specific things to bring up, bring those things up and problem solve with you, a way for it to be more productive conversations. And yeah, of course, you said that you regret giving in. Give yourself some grace too. It takes an enormous effort to learn how to regulate ourselves. And we do that with self-care. We do that with community. We do that with meditation. We do that with a cold shower when we can't do anything else but survive. We do that with walking outside, listening to music. There are ways for us to come back into our bodies, even in the midst of this chaos. So give yourself some grace. We do not do this thing perfectly. But yeah, it is about learning how to navigate this together, because it is a lot. It is hard. It is a challenge. And both people are feeling a lot. But yeah, you've been hurt. You have been betrayed. And you do deserve a place to share your feelings, thoughts, and not be met with gaslighting and deflection.
And less than a year. So let's do the math. He knew all along he was doing all of these things. And you had discovery. So you had less than a year to absorb all of this stuff. Dr. Rob talks about, and there's no timeline, and I hate using timelines, but he talks about it can take a year and a half easy for partners to to get into that. I think there's a lot of things you can do to regulate faster. I just put in the chat, Debbie McCrae does wonderful webinars on, she's real, I call her the queen of healthy boundaries. I'm going to get her a crown. It says queen
You
of healthy
should.
boundaries. I know I'm going to, but I have to find it, but it's a project I'm on. But she is so good. She can say a 4-part talking boundary. Like I was thinking when you're talking about, we argued, at some point, like she puts her hand up and she goes, I'm like, she says there's a 4-part talking boundary and I'm going to go take care of myself. And disengages, because all of that is you do this, I do this, you do this, I do this, and then we're both escalating and nothing gets resolved, and then someone caves. And unfortunately, it is often the partner, because, and I'm not, again, like, grace and all of that kind of stuff, because somebody's got to end it. And so, but that doesn't help either of you navigating this process. So we have Debbie McCrae, again, the queen of healthy boundaries, has work groups on healthy boundaries, and I put the link to the work groups in there. He would really benefit, I think, from the Out of the Doghouse work group too, because learning to build trust, that if he's got a solid, like he's not acting out, then it might be time to work on those things. So, but yeah, this is like the more you can do to regulate. Oh, and then I put the link to the previously recorded webinars too. So check those out. I think those could be useful for you, making sure you've got support. But at some point, like Erin was talking about, it's like, nope, I'm not going to argue that same thing over and over again. I'm not going to lose my internal boundary of like, I'm taking care of me. And so I'm going to just, step away from this, and maybe when it's not in a heated moment, of this, that you have this conversation of the next time this happens, I'm merely going to step away. I'm not abandoning, but I'm not going to engage in it because it's dysregulating for me and it doesn't help us. So,
Mm.
um, but yeah, it really does feel like he's blame shifting onto you. Like now it's all you. And he's not even a year in, like that's baby recovery yet. So,
Mhm.
um, and his groups won't call him out because guess what? He's not going to his groups and saying, this is what I'm doing. He's not emotionally and whatever mature enough yet to go and, I'm struggling with this and I need help. He, and I hope his groups aren't buying in if he's, going and blame shifting onto you. Um, and she added, I try not to, but it's almost like he deflects because once it gets heated, we're both in the wrong. I think that goes to that one, right? Well, let's see. Let me read the other one. I'm having a really hard time tonight because they're all in
I
on.
know, because there's lots of pieces and
Yeah.
parts coming.
And yeah. What kinds of things do we share in Thanos? Are the addicts supposed to be sharing things like you mentioned about whether they are having triggers and what they're doing about them, such as fantasizing or edging? How deep are we meant to go in Thanos?
So for those of you who don't know what Thanos is, it is a typically daily check-in where one partner shares first, and that's typically feelings. So like the emotions you've experienced throughout the day. Um, A is affirmations, appreciation and gratitude. The N is needs. So communicating your emotional and practical needs. Ownership is taking responsibility for your actions, things you need to say out loud. And then struggles / sobriety is the S. And yeah, I think this is a great question because there's a lot of couples that are earlier in recovery that cannot do daily Thanos, where they're not at that place where they can actually like let someone go through Thanos, actively listen, and then let the other person go. It's not meant to be like a back and forth dialogue. It's meant to be more of we're building emotional connection by vulnerably and honestly sharing on these things. But I think it's a great question of like, how deep do we go? What do we share? I mean, I think Thanos can be deep. It really depends on kind of the emotional safety in the relationship. And you're asking specifically like triggers and fantasizing or edging. Yeah, that's an appropriate place to say it. Now, what I would say is oftentimes the things that are in our mind, detailing those out loud to a partner, and we get a lot of backlash on this because I understand why partners want to know all the details of your mind, but oftentimes when they're going too specific, then their triggers just become their partner's triggers, when really what they should be saying is, you know what, I did struggle with like a visual trigger today. But what I did is, I called my sponsor, I reached out to my recovery brothers, I was able to kind of move that in the right direction. Or, hey, I've been really stressed today and I found my mind going to fantasy, but I redirected myself over here. So yeah, it is a place for honesty. I think the level of depth you go as a couple is based in the emotional safety you have as a couple. And some cannot handle like the depth right away. I don't mean depth of honesty, because we should be honest, even in day one of recovery, like there should be honesty. But just about, you know, partners feeling like, I don't know, like they're being dumped on, or like they're given information they're just quite not ready for. So I think it's important with Thanos that you guys decide on that together during Thanos check-in. I would like to know if you're struggling, because, hey, there's a whole section about struggles and sobriety. I would want to know if you're struggling with something. I would prefer you're more generic and want to know what you did with that, what you're doing in recovery, how you moved through that. Those are things that help build trust and build intimacy. And also it's like, hey, if this is a daily check-in, you got a shot to be honest with me every day of the week. And I want you to take that. But I do think you can have that conversation before you start a Thanos check-in is like, how deep do we go? Or should we reserve that based on our inability to kind of communicate right now? Should we reserve that for a therapy session to go into the depths where we have a little bit more support? So I think you can decide. It really is not meant to be like a 2-hour thing. It's meant to be like Thanos, I'm sharing 5-10 minutes, you're sharing 5-10 minutes, it's actively listening. And some people choose to go into like a dialogue, but it's kind of meant to be, I'm being witnessed by you, you're observing, and vice versa. But again, every couple kind of makes it their own. I use something called I created something called a relationship board meeting. It's once a week versus a daily Thanos check-in. And ultimately, it's looking at the week we just had. How was our emotional connection? Did we meet any of the goals we had talked about? Did we have fun? Did we have a date night? Did we have sex? Like all the things you're kind of like working on, and every couple would make it different. How did we do in recovery? What's some things that I would have changed about last week individually and together? And then it's planning the week ahead. So we're saying, who has therapy when? Who's going to recovery meetings? These are household chores we need help with. Who's taking the kids and running them where? Are we going to have a date night? If so, I'd like for you to plan it. Can you put it on the schedule? And then you're setting some emotional goals for the next week. So it's saying, what are 3 small goals we'd like to, as a couple, like set for this next week? And then individually, here's a goal I would like to set for myself. And here's a goal you would like to set for yourself. So I think instead of being the every single day thing that some couples aren't ready for, it's a once a week. It kind of reviews the week we had and makes some metered progress towards the week we're going to have. And I see couples use it often and feel like they're moving through some things that were challenging for them. So it's just something, people choose to do things differently. Some therapists will assign you a totally different check-in than this, even no Thanos, so whatever works best for you. If you're finding Thanos is a source of contention, it's a source of conflict, it's a source of difficulty, then maybe try something else.
Well, and I pulled up the blog. There's a blog on, and I put the link in the chat, but there's a blog on our website on sex and relationship healing. But it recommends twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, and it even puts the time, and it says, look in each other's eyes, and it says, and the addict will go first. I mean, like it's a guideline. And I know about fine as another one. So there's lots of different things. Find what works for you. But most people, my experiences, don't have a clue how to communicate with each other. So this is a starting point, and it says for the addict partner, it says to emphasis should be on the tools used to combat triggers rather than on the triggers themselves. So you don't go down the rabbit hole of these are my triggers. These are my triggers. It's like, and here's what I'm using, to do things. So, and yeah, I'm in the like 2 to 3 minutes each, maybe 5, but yeah, 20 minutes. Oh my gosh. Like if I had to do 20 minutes every day, which doesn't sound like a lot to do every day to improve your relationship, but like mentally getting there. But, like, wow, if it's working really good and you can do it, 5 minutes every day, great. Or if you go, oh, that's an item we need to put on our 20-minute or our executive board meeting, or relationship board meeting. Like there's different options of going, oh yeah, let's table that one so that you can really do a check-in and not get, bogged down by other things. So, okay. So the next one, how do you know if the addict is starting to use their healing against you, such as weaponizing therapy, speak, and comparing seemingly competitive about healing they are doing versus what the betrayed partner is doing? How can you check them? My self-protection has my walls up high, and it makes me want to just shrink and pull back even more. But I don't know how much more I can pull back without exiting the situation. Wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you answered your own question. So in the first, how do you know if, and then you go to kind of state, I think, what you're experiencing. And so I think it's important for you to say, okay, I am experiencing this if you are, right? Like, I feel like now that he's in therapy, he's like, well, look at what I'm doing and what are you doing? And, and then using words like therapists would use, like, I hear what you're saying, but, and then going and deflecting. And so that would be very frustrating, right? It's like, okay, great, glad you're getting some help, but the underlying behaviors are almost like now you're using the resentment, entitlement, justification in a different way. I'm using it now to put my healing over back on you. And I hate that you're saying like I just want to shrink and pull back. And I think it's natural that your walls are up high. You're observing whether this person actually can hold your heart and protect it and take care of you. And you're starting to feel like even his healing is not making you feel very safe. So I'm wondering what type of conversation you could have with him where just less about, well, I mean, you could certainly state the things you don't like, that you pointing the finger at me now and saying, I'm not doing enough and I'm not, and the words that you're using make me feel small, make me feel like I have to defend myself against you. I don't feel safe. But more than that, asking him for what you do want and need, right? Which is, I would love to hear about how your therapy session went, like in a vulnerable way where you're sharing about how your therapy session went, if you're open to that. Versus coming back and being like, my therapist said that you should be in therapy two times a week, like that doesn't feel like including me in recovery. It feels like you're weaponizing recovery against me. And so delineating what feels like what to you and being like boundaries are what give us the ability to connect to those we love safely. And so setting a boundary of like, hey, if you're coming back and you're telling me 5 things I need to do after your therapy session, I'm going to take, a break from our conversation. We can reconvene the next day. But really what I'm not interested in you telling me what I need to do better to heal, because this is not a competition. We're on a healing journey. Some days are going to seem like you're doing better. Other days I'm going to feel like I'm really having a good day and I'm using my tools. No one's doing this perfectly. It's about progress, not perfection. So I would just be sharing that I want to connect to you safely. But when you share things in this way, it makes me want to shrink. Like exactly what you said. And I don't know how to shrink any more than I already feel shrunk. And my next move is like wanting to run away from here. And so can we figure out a way where both of us can have these, conversations where I don't feel like you're just now using, it's like previously your addiction weaponized against me and now your healing is weaponized against you. But either way, I don't feel like I'm your partner. I don't feel like we're in this together. And so finding a way to share that with him, maybe it's even go to a therapy session together. Like he could join you with yours, you could join him with his, just to kind of sit down and say, is there a better way for us to go about this? And also, if he's trying to point out something and he's using his healing as a way to weaponize it, ask him, is there something more specific, right? If you peel that layer back, is there something more specific that is going on? Do you feel like he may have some thoughts about, like we had talked about previously, the toxic blow up conversations, or like he may say, I don't feel safe with those. And I want to communicate with you productively. I just don't know how. And so instead of saying, well, my therapist said that you're acting toxic when like that's not the way to get to what is your need? What do you actually want? And so I think both of you have to figure out, what do I need? What do I want? And what do I not want here? And how can we get back to a place where we're on the same team? Because it feels like, again, no matter what position we're in, healing or addiction, that it's weaponized against one another. So that would be my advice, is like, see if you can get under what's going on. Because I agree, like you don't want to feel small and you don't want to feel like I'm being pushed out so far that I just want to run. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I was thinking again, the addict knew all along what they were doing. A partner has a start point that is, very different, and so it's a very different journey. And for the addict to all of a sudden go, yeah, I got my 30-day chip. I'm just making this up, but I got my 30-day chip and I'm doing really great. And what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm still laying under the truck, thanks, because I got hit. And it's very hard. I hate that you're feeling like just that you're shrinking. And So we have an empowered women's retreat, and I can't help but wonder if that would be a place for you to start. And I will put the link in. I should have pulled that, but I will go back to the work groups. I put the link for the work groups, and there's a betrayed partner work group starting in July. But the boundaries work groups, I don't remember the dates. They're on that link as well. There's two different ones, and just see if there's something that is a fit for you, because one of the things I'm hearing is, internal boundaries is I'm not going to let myself, vaporize in all of this. And it may be that you need to go. I'll pull the stay or go a series as well. But I, using your words and going like, yeah, this is not, this is not helpful. This is not bringing us together. I often share the podcast with Dr. Rob and Dr. Stan Tatkin from January of 2019 called We Do. And in the healthy relationship, we are working towards the relationship and not, well, you're not doing enough on this, on either side of it. It doesn't, it isn't helpful. So I love what Erin was talking about of like, get underneath what is the real ask. And if it's, and I don't know, but if it's the addict just going like, look how good I'm doing, that is not helpful. That isn't even sobriety or recovery. That's just, looking for external whatever too. So,
Yeah. And
okay,
like
go
you
ahead,
said,
please.
the start point is different for betrayed partners. And often it's a massively traumatic start point. It's like, hey, all of a sudden, grenade gets thrown into your life, blown up. I don't know what my reality is. I'm all over the place. I have intrusive thoughts. I can't sleep. I physically feel terrible. I'm trying to manage life. Like that's their start. That's their starting recovery. So half the time it's like, there's these expectations of like, why aren't you healing? It's like, I don't even know my name today. Like, I don't know what I've been doing the last 30 years. I like these things are brand spanking new. And you're right. The addict has, yeah, their healing may have started around the time long that time, but they've been aware of like they've been doing this the whole time. So they're in this compartmentalized, but like wheels are on the truck, and their truck only blows up when they get caught. But this isn't new. They didn't learn your whole life has been a lie. Like partners start in recovery and healing for themselves is a traumatic bomb going off typically. And so give some grace, give some grace that let them find their footing and just stop treading water for 1 second. It is really hard, especially in those early months after D-Day.
Yeah, I was thinking, it's like one day you think your relationship is this, and then the next it's like everything you thought you knew is like you have no point of reference, no context. You're questioning every single thing, every event, every nuance, every, I love you said, all of those things. So so it's really unfair to expect a partner to, you know, great, you're on recovery and you've got, your again, your 30-day check. Woohoo. No, like how many years have you been lying? And sometimes with relationships, it precedes you and can be two relationships before that. Like people are married, divorced, and all that, and you find out is they've been doing this, forever,
Yeah.
with every relationship they've been in. So
And I
okay,
think
so go ahead.
that, well, sorry, we just keep
No.
having more thoughts. But, that I think too, one thing that I realized in experiencing this myself was there are also parts of betrayal trauma that I didn't ask for and didn't want in terms of what my brain chose to do. And I am someone that is educated in this, works in this, does this day in and day out, and has all the skills that the known to man. Like I had them all in my available. And even for me, the the way my brain almost assaulted me, like because in trauma it's trying to keep you safe. Your brain is going to think of all the possible ways that this could go wrong so you can be
Mhm.
safe, and you go to like, I need more knowledge, I got to know everything about everything to be safe. I have to, and really it's very dysregulating. But for me it was intrusive thought. I didn't want those thoughts in my head. I did not want images that weren't even real popping into my mind. I didn't want, and I couldn't stop what my brain was doing. And like I said, I am someone with years of recovery. I do this for a living. So I always just say, give grace, because your partner literally at an assault on their own brain right now, where regulation takes a Herculean effort to get yourself to, okay, first of all, what works for me to regulate? Okay, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that 15 times. I'm going to keep trying that until it's like, oh my gosh, I can take a breath again. And then it's like back to get you. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take a breath again. So those early days are not even in their control what they're doing. I mean, seriously, it is really, really hard. And so it takes time and grace and patience. Yeah.
And support.
And
I put a
support.
bunch of resources like this is, you know, I won't speak for you, but with all of your knowledge, with all of your recovery, like my perception is you leaned into people that could help support you.
A lot. Yep. And there's not always a place where you feel safe. And so it like, I love our platform because it provides a safe place where you're not going to get the opinions of you need to stay or you need to go, or you're not so close to your situation that now they hate your husband or hate your partner. I mean, it gives community. And I had, yeah, a ton of women carry me through the first few months of that experience and have continued to be in the same women's group, for this whole, and they have saved my life. And these people aren't even in the same state as me, you know, and that was everything. And so, yeah, finding that safe place. And even if it's a couple people, it makes the difference. It helps you to feel you're not so alone. You're not crazy. You're healing and you need love, support, and safety.
And when you start, you're injured. You aren't even ready to heal yet. You are just plain hurt and
Yeah.
injured. So I was thinking when Maddie Corman did the webinar, she has the Accidentally Brave on HBO Max, and she graciously came and did a webinar. But she talked about, she calls, and I don't know the person's name, don't need to, but she talks about I had an angel, and she thought she was a liar because she's, saying you are going to get through this, and she didn't believe it. But that person she could really lean into and gave her other resources and connections, and she did learn to lean into the safe people that were there. It is not a sign of weakness to lean in. It is honestly a sign of strength to go, I need help.
Yeah.
I need support. And so for any partner who is sitting there alone and feeling isolated and that there's no one, there is. And I can't implore you enough to lean into the resources. If you don't have a qualified therapist, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and let me know where you're located. I will do my best to find you someone qualified to support you from a codependent lens, not going, you're codependent, you're part of the problem. We want to provide, support and resources and healing for you. So don't be shy. This is not a time to isolate. So, although
Right.
I'm sure you feel like it. So. Okay, this one's for you, Erin. I'm curious what your thoughts are regarding an addict betrayer in good recovery and an SILA alum. He attends one SAA meeting every day, typically lasts 4 months. What are your thoughts regarding him getting into IFS model of self-awareness, as this model doesn't acknowledge that there are any bad parts, and how that is so different from SAA, character defects, and the 4-step list of character flaws? Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Um, so I think that even some therapists and different people have said, like, why do we got to call it character defects, right? That it's so negative that you're defected. And look, I think that IFS acknowledges we all have different parts of ourselves, the protector parts, the parts that are scared, the parts are that are the darker part, the shadow part of ourselves. And the whole point is not to label them as bad, shameful, other, because what we have learned, especially when you look at like Jungian psychology, is that the parts we cast off, the parts we cast away, end up unconsciously ruling our life. And acknowledging them and saying, so there's this exercise I do with the guys in treatment sometimes. I call it the masks we wear. And I literally have on the one side, the client who we're doing the exercise with will I will start him as a little child. And I'll say, what's the very first thing you did to escape as a kid when things were uncomfortable or whatever? And they're like, oh, I would escape into fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, or I would read for hours or I'd isolate. So I would have a different client play that mask, right? And then as they got older, they started to recognize, okay, masturbation came in, and then validation from, the people I was attracted to. And then I had to be a sports, athlete. And then I had like all these things. And I have literally them all lined up, represented by different people. And then I have their family on the other side, their partner, whatever, trying to say, I love you. And I have them, all the masks are yelling all these things. You need me because I protect you and I make you feel worthy of love. And he has to literally physically get through all the masks. But at the end, he has to go and thank each one and say, you were a survival mechanism for me and you got me through these years of my life, but I no longer need you. And I want to dismiss you from this area. So it's about like, we actually need to realize that all of these parts are a part of us. And saying like, I'm just going to eradicate this thing and swear it off is not actually going to work. Carl Jung, what did he say? Uh, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And it's the same thing.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it's just about saying, hey, you are a part of me. Hey, addict, I recognize you're over here talking shit in my ear. And I understand what you're doing. You're trying to self-soothe me. You're trying to get me to not experience these negative emotions, but I don't need that right now. I actually have other skills. I have other parts of me that want to step up in this moment. And that's how you begin to reparent yourself, is recognizing those parts popping up and how to, dismiss them when they're not needed, how to be inclusive of them when they are needed. So I think that that's very different for this question. That's different than recognizing, some of our character flaws, right? That call them flaws, call them defects, call them like personality traits, call them coping mechanisms. We can label it whatever you want, but there are certain parts of us that aren't serving us anymore. And so it's not about shaming you. It's about saying, hey, I recognize that this is something that I do that's no longer serving me. And I want to do the work in my 4th step inventory, followed by 5, 6, 7, and 8, to grow to a healthier place where I can see those resentments. I can see how those play out in my behavior, the parts that I need to own in those patterns and trends. And then what amends do I need to make in the world? And whether that's in a living amends and my behavior that changes over time, what is it? So I just think these two things are not mutually exclusive to the client that asks. I don't think that like IFS like makes 12-step, 4th step not effective either. I just think it's a difference of words. It's a difference of approaches. There's a lot of therapeutic theories that would not agree with one another. That doesn't make one bad or wrong. It just means one approach may work best for someone or someone else. And again, it's not about increasing shame. It's not about, it's about us getting better and having more awareness more than anything. More awareness is the beginning of change. If I can see it and it's not a giant blaring blind spot anymore, then at least I have the option to do something with it. If I don't see it, if I don't acknowledge it, if I'm in denial over here and I'm just like, then we don't have the option. It's still in the unconscious. So bringing it to our awareness, into our conscious mind, allows us to have the option to do something with it. So that's a really great question. And you don't have to label anything bad, but you can say there are things about my behavior I want to change. And I think it's pretty clear that not the parts of ourself are bad, but the things they do in protection of themselves or in motivation for something, those behaviors are not helpful. They hurt people, So that's where I would go with this question.
That was super helpful. So John Taylor did like a whole series on the different models and things like that. It was fascinating to hear the different things, and you could see how you can be pulling from, different, different aspects. But and I'm pretty. I don't like good and bad because it feels like so judgy. And so like there are things that don't serve me well. They can be part of me. They aren't, you know, I like the light in the dark. I would rather move towards the light. This is not helpful. I mean, I do lots of those type of things, reframing, I suppose. But as soon as I go to good and bad, I'm like, like it just demoralizes me. I don't want to be a bad person. So I'd rather go, well, that's not my best move. That's not really helpful. And there's a lot of things that honestly are part of my character strengths that were used, to the dark. And
Yes.
so yeah, like there are moments when I go, used well, this is a strength. Used poorly, this is, it's not helpful. So I like that. And you're early on. I'm so glad you're here and asking. But recovery is a journey. Like this is, the rest of our lives, and we'll learn. And there's more layers. I go and I go to meetings, and we one of my meetings we read, as Bill sees it, just as we read 6 pages, and I've been going long enough that we've gone through that book a bunch of times, and
Yep.
I swear every single time I go, wow, I've heard this how many times, and I hadn't, I had a different little nuance insight or something else picks up. So trust the journey.
Mhm.
Look at how can this model help. Take what you need that will help you for this chapter, and then look, for what the next chapter could be. Like you find out something and go, oh, I need to do some different kind of work on that component, so to speak. So, but yeah, we're a whole bunch of parts, and nobody's all good, all bad. It's like we're a bunch of parts, and you
Yeah. And
know,
Dr. Rob has been talking a lot about lately, just about how you have to come to acceptance that there is a part of me that was willing to do this. There's a part of me that there is a darkness in this area that was willing to hurt the people that I love, where like, and it coming to acceptance with that, it does not mean, it actually gives you the ability to change. Not, it's not about, well, I'm condoning or I'm giving an excuse. It's like, no, the sooner that I can accept that that's a part of me, then step one, okay, I'm powerless over it. And I need to protect myself, and I need to protect those I love from that part of me, you know? And that's the thing with recovery is it's, I feel like in the beginning, none of us wanted to have to join this club. It was the consequence, it was the nudge from the judge, it was threatening losing things in your life. No one wanted to be here. And it can feel very overwhelming in the beginning to like accept that this has to be part of my life. But what you realize is there comes a point when you say, it did for me, where I said, I like who I am better now than the person that would ever go back to what was. And I owe that to recovery. I owe that to the work that I've done. And my only regret was not doing it sooner. My only regret was because some people will go to their grave miserable, alone. And recovery is not just about getting rid of the behavior you don't want, the drugs, the sex, though. It's not just about that. It's gaining so much. It's gaining integrity, it's gaining self-worth, it's gaining community and connection and direction, and that I'm a person that can take accountability in the world, and I know how to navigate conversation, like learning how to live. So many people were never given that in their childhood, and they get that in recovery. And there's some of the deepest, happiest, amazing people in those rooms, that have time, that are there now with purpose and passion and giving back to the people that are around them. So if you're on the beginning of this journey, I get it. None of us wanted to pull this card. Not a single one of us was like, yeah, I'm excited to walk into my first 12-step meeting, or none of us wanted that.
can't wait to grow up and be an addict.
Yeah, none of us. However, you can find such a deeper well of what life can be, on this journey. And it is beautiful, and it gets better, and it's not always as hard.
And I'm sitting here while you're listing off those things, and I'm like, And how many addicts are sitting there in their active addiction going like, yeah, that's what I want. No, no, they want to hang on to it. I often say it's like heads down in this really small space, which is why I often say the inner circle is the smallest circle because it's it's the least stuff like, and it's a choice, like I am really clear that I don't have to give up any. I could go right back to my addiction. I can absolutely choose on any given moment to return to that, and I can get all of the pain and misery and the distrust and lose everything that all the good stuff I have in a hot second if I choose to. But that's a choice, but man, I work really hard at maintaining because this is so good. And I always say if I could wave a magic wand, and I can't, don't have one, and you could see how good it would be, every addict would be just doing, yeah, I'm in, I want that, like the freedom, not carrying around 100 pounds of toxic shame and guilt and all of that other stuff that we bury deep in
Yeah.
our addiction. So we don't have to keep lying to ourselves, denial, and going, oh yeah, we're good people. We got this facade. Like you're talking about the masks. Oh yeah,
Mm.
mask, 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 so
Yeah.
okay. So next question. I found his list of backup women, and some of them I don't. Some of them I know, and some he talks to every day. He says it's old, but I don't trust him. What do I do? Oh goodness.
Well, again, words don't mean a whole lot. Okay. So I would be asking you, if this is old, what evidence do you have that things have changed since that point? What's he doing? What's he, is his actions reflecting someone who's honest right now? Or is it not? And I always say you don't have to have evidence. Like some people, some partners will be like, well, I'm safety seeking, meaning I'm going through his emails and I'm checking his phone every night. And I'm like, you don't actually have to have evidence to set a boundary. You can literally just say, the way you're behaving, your defensiveness, the suspicious, things you're doing after work, like I don't have to have evidence that you're acting out to set a boundary to feel safe for myself. That this is about start beginning to follow your intuition, which I get. We lose our intuition in betrayal trauma because you stopped trusting that inner voice. But your inner voice typically knows, and it's not just based on like magic. I just know. It's like there's little every day there are multiple opportunities, what I would say, to put in the marble jar, that every moment is an option for trust or betrayal. And that does not have to be betrayal as we know it. It could be, I was really sad and I was, like I had a tear rolling down my face. My husband was leaving for work and he saw me, but because he was late, he ran out the door. That was a moment where there could be connection and there could be healing, and it was betrayal. So I'm just saying that our intuition, consciously or unconsciously, picks up all kinds of cues that are sending us signals of whether or not things are accurately being portrayed in our world. And if they're not, and you don't feel safe, in this case, finding a whole list of people don't know, it would be hurtful either way. So saying, oh, it's old, don't worry about it, that's not getting to the, hey, I can understand why that would be immensely traumatizing to find that right now. That like my words don't mean a whole lot to you because I've been working on this. And what I'm telling you right now doesn't help the fact that it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel, and I'm so sorry that you're going through that experience right now. What can I do to help right now? Do you see how that even feels different? So instead of immediately going to, well, you're crazy because that's old. So
But he's talking to him every day. So
right. So I can't tell you what to do, but what I would say is trust your gut. If you need space to feel safe and make a decision around what you want to do with this, then take the space and consult with some people, journal about it, and say, what do I need right now? What do I need? I don't trust this right now.
I had said I would put, should I stay or should I go? And it's not just for that other question or for this last question, but I mentioned I was going to do that earlier. But I, I love, the whole series, but particularly the first one with Kristen Snowden, because she has 10 questions to journal about, and that will help you. Like, how much am I into this relationship? I think it's great if both of you do it, and get, kind of figure out where you're at. What am I willing to do to prioritize this relationship? And, somehow talking to the people that are on my list every day, that are on my backup list, does not feel like that would build trust. Okay, addict here. A few months since addiction came to light, self-disclosure last week with wife. She's in once weekly therapy, has good support from family and friends. I have found resources to pass on to her, but feel like it's too soon in this journey and don't want to seem pushy. How can I support my spouse in this early? What are you doing for you? I hear that but like, and oh gosh, self-disclosure. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Erin.
I know that was my first thought was like, no,
No, no, I know. I was like,
just for everyone on the webinar, we
yeah,
don't
please.
recommend doing a do-it-yourself disclosure,
Yeah.
meaning like, because what ends up happening is death by 1,000 paper cuts. I'm going to tell you a little bit now, but my shame can't handle more. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit then, and we do what that trickle disclosure that is massively painful and sets you up for having even less trust, okay, in the relationship. So we recommend going through a process called full therapeutic disclosure. It's facilitated by CSATs. It's a full record of truth. Anyways. Okay. So I'm glad she's in weekly therapy, has good support from family and friends, and you have found more research. Okay. So I'm going to go with the assumption that you are in recovery because, and that may or may not be true. And you are doing all the things you should be doing in recovery. I don't think it's, I don't think it's pushy. I think there is the problem we saw earlier in the evening on that question of feeling like it's being weaponized against me and I'm not doing enough. And so she's in therapy and has good support. What you can do is, hey, partner, I heard about a couple of things that I thought would be supportive to you. I don't want you to feel like what you're doing isn't enough, or like, would it be okay for me to share those with you? And if she's like, no, I'm not interested, then there's your answer, right? Or you could say, hey, if I find something that I thought was really cool and maybe could be helpful in one of my meetings, I heard about this thing that was helpful for someone else. Like, is it okay with you if I write it in, this journal over here? And if you ever feel interested in what I put there, go check it out, but not saying like, Tammy and Erin on the webinar tonight said that empowered women's retreat is really what you should be doing to offload your anger, like that's different. And that's going to get you more of the response of like, yeah, you're pushy. You're shining a light on me over here. And she is in therapy. Now, there are a lot of partners that do need to continue, their healing journey. But again, it really can't really come from you. So let her therapist offer her resources. Let her friends and family offer her resources. Let her reach out. But again, you can always ask. That, you don't have to just slide it over there and run away. It's like you can always ask, hey, if I hear about something cool, can I share it with you? And she can say yes or
no. And it's really easy to want to focus on how do I help her, because then it deflects. And what I always say to the addict partners is the more work you are doing on taking care of you, the more that's going to show up and that will help her. The more you are doing, we talked about somebody who's 4 months in or a year in or whatever. This is 2 to 5 years to get a solid foundation of recovery, doing the work that you need to do. So you're a few months in. I hope you've been doing 90 meetings in 90 days on 12-step. We have webinars, we have free drop-in groups. We have all kinds of resources to support you. If you haven't already done so, the Sex Addiction 101, I think starts tomorrow, because I was talking to somebody earlier today and they said they're signed up for it to start tomorrow. Online work group would be timely, that would be a solid. Our qualified professionals recommend those for their clients because they help them get more traction. And yes, as far as the disclosure, it's not just the trickle stuff, but it's also saying too much information, gory details that partners, but like the most talked about. Well, let me back up. Dr. Rob and Erin offer a weekly peer case consultation group with therapists who are trained to do this work. The number one topic that comes to light recurring is formal therapeutic disclosure. So if the professionals ask for support from other professionals about this for on behalf of their clients, this is not a do-it-yourself job. Like
Oh,
we can't stress that enough. If you actually want the relationship to move forward, then get some help to do this now. And then Matt Wheeler has talked about not every couple needs formal therapeutic disclosure. Like some partners are in the
not to.
I know it's bad, and but I see that he's doing his work and I'm willing to move forward. I can ask questions if I need to. We'll get some support. So it isn't a like you need this to do this, but please, 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 we beg you, don't do this on your own. It's there's too much stuff that makes it worse for both of you, but really for partners. So and hopefully she's like these webinars are for both of you. So like you can go, hey, let's listen in on a webinar together and see, whatever, like if you're doing it together for helping the relationship, that's different than are you paying attention? Haha. Did you hear that?
Right.
Haha. And she's got support, and if she needs more, there's support for her, but you doing your work and showing up. So like Aaron's, when we start off, what are the actions? If your actions are showing you are all in on doing your work for you, great. So
Yeah.
okay, we're out of time, we're out of questions, and so thank you, Erin. We will see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you tomorrow
Okay.
on the peer group, and then Dr. Rob will be back next week. But check out, we've got a special edition. I forgot which one now, but we've got a special edition coming up next week, Wednesday. And yeah, so I've got a bunch of different ones starting this month again, so check them out. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
You. Good night, everyone.